Hi and welcome to The Winning Factor. I'm Alan Aitken, and on this show each week I take a look at some upcoming races in Hong Kong and we try to isolate an angle to the race we might look back on later as having been crucial to finding the winner. Well, some big racing this Sunday, the first leg of the 4-year-old series in the Classic Mile, and a never-to-be-forgotten Stewards Cup clash between the three best horses in Hong Kong at the moment. And they are two highlights on a great day's racing. The first race I'm going to look at is race 3 on the support card, and our winning factor here, the winner up in class. Now this is a Class 2, 1200 metres, and like all Class 2 races, there's good talent across the field, and there will be arguments made for most of these runners, I think, but for me the winner comes from the group comprising Trillion Win, with his blinkers back on, a Power Kept, who's racing well, Zac Purton goes on Rock Your Heart, while Karis Teeton takes over on Beauty Tycoon, and even Eason might have some supporters returning to 1200 metres here. But I think the race really revolves around Beauty Tycoon, a fairly lightly raced 4-year-old, just really hitting his straps this season. So let's take a look at his most recent offering, and this is a Class 3 win at Happy Valley. This is race 251, he's in the familiar pink and black Beauty colours. Gate 2 begins well, and Zac Purton happy to let him be crossed early in a pace that is only steady for the first 800 metres of the race, and you can see that in that steady pace Beauty Tycoon wants to go a little bit quicker than Purton wants him to go. That's something we've seen from this horse before. He's still learning to relax in his races, but despite wasting that energy, they turn for home, the inside rail opens up, and Beauty Tycoon still sprints strongly through to come clear in good sectionals and win, I thought, with something in hand. Now that's the win of a horse who's very much still on an upward spiral. But I think if there's a danger to him, it could come via the map. So when we look at this race, we saw there Beauty Tycoon, he has a tendency to get a bit keen when the pace isn't strong, and when we look at this race, there isn't a whole lot of recognised speed. Now, in the outside gate, apprentice Angus Chung has ridden I'm a Single Man positively last start with a happy result. So I'm expecting from the outside draw, he'll attempt something similar. And he might not even get a lot of pushback from the few horses underneath him with a bit of speed, because they're not really leaders either, unless Trillion Win makes a better jump this time in the blinkers than he has been without them. If he does, then so much the better for Beauty Tycoon if the pace is true. So the tip in race 3 from me is Beauty Tycoon, his winning factor, the winner up in class. Now this is an angle we go back to constantly on this show, and there's none better at turning up with winners from this line than John Size. So Beauty Tycoon's got it all to be the winner of race 3. So the other race I want to take a look at is race 7, the Group 1 Stewards Cup, and our winning factor here, the map. Now this is the highlight race of the day, the season, and maybe quite a few seasons past, as there are Group 1 winners spread across the 7-horse field, but I don't think anyone is looking at a potential winner outside of Golden 60, Romantic Warrior and California Spangle. They've won 40 of their collective 50 race starts, many of those Group 1s and major events on the Hong Kong calendar. And having 3 such outstanding horses clash at a distance where they all have winning claims is very rare. In fact, I couldn't find a comparable event in the last quarter century of Hong Kong's big races. Now for me, the way this race pans out is going to be utterly crucial to who comes out on top. So I intend to spend a little bit of time on that. We're only going to look at one replay, and that is going back to December and the Hong Kong Mile, where California Spangle beat Golden 60. Now this is race 239, gate 2, yellow and red colours. California Spangle leads early from Waikuku in pink, red and black, with Golden 60 in the white dropping behind, but staying off the rail, and a positive ride here on Waikuku ends up with that horse taking the box seat. Now the tempo is initially slow, but sharper in the second section. And then I suspect Zach Purton was about to slow them up on the leader until a key moment at the 800 metres. Hugh Bowman has had enough of fighting Beauty Joy, lets him run around the field to the lead, and I think that helped California Spangle as it kept the pace rolling at a better than average speed, stretching the finishes of those behind. It gave California Spangle something to chase and also gave Golden 60 more ground to make up, and that proved decisive at the line. Now, in recent times in different jurisdictions, it has become certainly more commonplace to see published maps for races of all levels. And I think what people have to remember is that a map is basically just someone's opinion. There are fundamentals to it, but at the end of the day, the intent of jockeys counts as much as the speed of the horse in deciding where horses set up in a race. So I thought we'd look at this race with some top horses and quite a number of the world's best jockeys engaged, and see just what angles we could look at for the map and see how this race might pan out. Now, I think we have to agree on some foundational aspects. One is that the stayers, Panfield and Russian Emperor, they'll go back to the rear, and California Spangle will lead. But after that, it's a blank canvas. So the first map I'm going to look at is the forecast from the Hong Kong Jockey Club website, the Speed Pro page. Now, it's calling for a good to slow speed, has Beauty Joy being positive, taking the position in the box seat on the back of California Spangle, with Romantic Warrior on his outside 2 wide, Golden 63 back on the fence, and Ryan Moore steadies Waikuku to sit outside him and behind Romantic Warrior. Now, it's certainly one of the possible scenarios, but not one that would suit Vincent Ho on Golden 60 very much. He's 2 pairs back in the race behind the lead, and behind a horse without a strong chance of taking him into a challenging position. And outside him, well, he's got a couple of very competitive jockeys in Karis Teeton and Ryan Moore, who will be only too happy to keep him in there as long as possible. The other aspect to this is how much Hugh Bowman wants to ask of Beauty Joy early to get that position, as this horse is a loose cannon. He can charge if you light him up early, and even if you don't, if he's in clear room, as we saw in the Hong Kong Mile. Now, after the Hong Kong Mile, and it was all's well that ends well, but Zach Purton revealed that he and Tony Cruz, the trainer of the horse, had had a disagreement over the way that California Spangle should be ridden. Tony wanted the horse to go out, lead, and lead fast. And I'm going to show you some comparisons here that really tell you where Tony's coming from with that idea. Now, these are the prior matchups between Romantic Warrior, California Spangle and Golden 60, and I've also thrown in the 2022 Hong Kong Cup. Not a matchup between these horses, but 30 minutes after the Hong Kong Mile, so it does allow a comparison of finishing speeds. Now, there's a lot of numbers there, so I'll cut to the chase. Every time they've met, California Spangle's final 400 metres is slower than either of these rivals. Last season, California Spangle was keen to run early in his races, so that did contribute, but even this season, when he's been more relaxed, his final sectionals are still not superior. And note Romantic Warrior in the Hong Kong Cup, in a fast run 2,000 metres, his last 400 and 200 metres were still better than California Spangle's in the mile. To me, California Spangle is a bit like one of Zach Purton's previous champions, Beauty Generation, in that he doesn't run fast sectional times at the end of his race, but Beauty Generation was like a metronome, churning out good, even pace throughout a race, and just the effort of staying in touch for his rivals meant that it dulled their ability to sprint at the finish, and he was able to beat horses with much better finishing sprints than him because of that. So given that Zach Purton is in charge of the pace here, I'm going to upgrade from the map that we've just seen, and not a good to slow pace, but a good pace is what I'm looking at for the second map that I'm going to take a look at now. And this is a different view of the race. In this view, the 4 rivals to California Spangle all have similar early speed. Beauty Joy and Golden 60 hold the inside 2 lanes early, We saw in the Hong Kong Mile Waikuku is fast enough to push forward for a position, but in this scenario he is 4 wide unless he is very aggressive. If he presses all the way forward to be 2 wide, then Golden 60 has cover behind him, but Romantic Warrior is still risking being 3 wide unless he comes back. He now gives a start to both main rivals, and that said, I don't think it suits Waikuku to be used that way, and he's more likely to steady, putting him outside Romantic Warrior, who is now the one who gets snookered. So for me, Purton's best chance is to lead, not slow the pace, and turn it into a sprint home, because we've seen that both his rivals are better at him than that. And when we look at the third and final map that I've looked at for this race, this is the map that I've settled on as most likely. Now this is with a good tempo set by California Spangle, Hugh Bowman steadying Beauty Joy to try and settle him as well as he did last start, and that puts him 3 back on the fence behind Golden 60 and unable to make any mid-race intrusions as he did in the Hong Kong Mile. Waikuku I think will be conservative under Ryan Moore rather than being used up as in the Hong Kong Mile where he completely flopped. That means Golden 60 has the back of the leader, like the Champions Mile last season when he beat California Spangle, waiting to come around his heels to challenge, with Romantic Warrior probably outside him in running, trying to pick up and maybe make his run a touch early, being the 2,000 metre horse in the race, and trying to beat Golden 60 to the punch. It's a balancing act worthy of Purton's skills on the leader, as he can't increase too soon or Golden 60 gets plenty of room early enough to beat him. If he tries to keep Golden 60 held up behind him, then Teton will launch early on Romantic Warrior, confident he has the stronger horse for the final stages. But for me, the tip in race 7 is Golden 60, his winning factor, the map. Now, we've seen there are different scenarios that can play out, and they're certainly not the be-all and end-all. There are plenty of other ways this race could work out. But I think the balance of probabilities is that Golden 60 is going to get the best map in the race, and I think that swings the decision his way in what is an intriguing and outstanding race. Well, that's it from me for the winning factor this week. Enjoy the big racing Sunday. We'll see you next time.